Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel, and thank you for tuning in to my second episode of my Redesign series. Now if you're new here, my name is Rigel, and in this corner of the internet I make design and lifestyle related videos. So if any of those topics interest you, consider subscribing and hit that bell for notifications. Now as I mentioned earlier, this is episode 2 of my Redesign series, and so if you haven't watched episode 1 yet, I'm going to leave a card up here that you can click on and also a link in the description below, so you could check that video out first and then just come back here so we can be all up to speed. In episode 1, I go a little bit more into detail about my full design process that goes into making a logo or redesigning a brand, and so since that's already taken care of in episode 1, this episode, we'll just kind of do a little overview of that since you guys already know what's to come. So in today's episode, I'm going to be redesigning the Hershey's logo. Now, I already have some design ideas of how I want to change this logo up just by looking at it, but I haven't done the background research for this yet, so I might change things as I go, so I won't actually tell you all of the ideas I have in my head right now until after. So why don't we just dive right into it? Let's go!
So the Hershey's logo has gone through a lot of changes over the years, but stays pretty consistent since 1910. The brand was first named National Chocolate Tablets, but was renamed after its founder in 1898, having the logo redesigned the same year. This inscription was arched with a bold serif typeface with all the letters capitalized and the first one enlarged. Then it had an ornate gold face, which had slight alterations until 1906 when they switched it to the color palette we are all familiar of today. By 1910, the logo switched to a bold sans serif font with all the letters capitalized. The logo has been constantly modified since then, while still keeping the same color palette and using a sans serif font. In today's current logo, they switch between the last two. Both are the minimalist 2D word mark, keeping it modern. The since 1894 vertical inscription was added in 2010.
Okay, so as we've seen, the Hershey's logo has been through a lot in the past 100 so years. Now, looking at all of that, I actually have a little bit of a difference in my ideas of how to design the logo, but it kind of sticks with what I originally wanted to do. Now, my original plan was actually to make it look more vintage than the current logo because I have it right here, but this is the current logo, that we saw also earlier. It's a lot more modern, 2D, and very clean cut. I actually am in love with their logo. I really like how it looks, very bold and easily recognizable, especially how much the brand has built over these a little over 100 years. But since we've seen how the past logos looked like, the original and then back in the early 1900s and then what it is now, I think I actually want to kind of blend the two together. So I want to still have the vintage feel. I want to really push for it, but I also want to add some of the modern elements that they end up adding on to, which is the whole all caps text, because I'm really into that. Instead of keeping the H capitalized and then the rest of the letters lowercase, I don't want to do that. So just a little background about me though. This logo is very heavy on typefaces and lettering and all of that stuff. The lettering is not my strong suit in design. I'm gonna admit that. So I don't really know how this is gonna work. I'm going to attempt to do some lettering on here, but if it ends up looking not as great, at least I have an idea of where to go to, but I might end up using a typeface and just editing it on Illustrator. So it's a little bit easier because I never took a class on lettering back in college. It was never required. It was never an option as a class option from the college that I went to. And yeah, so I was never formally trained or anything, and lettering has only just been a slight interest for me. I only started getting a little bit more interested in it this past year, maybe even less. But I mean, it's still something that I greatly admire. Whoever can letter, who's ever a lettering artist, big shout out to you guys. You were great. I just love the way you make all of the lettering typefaces. They're amazing. But yeah, so I'm just gonna go ahead and just test it out myself. I want to really make that vintage feel of those large swooshes, and making things look a little bit more elegant with the vintage feel. So we're just gonna see how this goes. Okay, now you know me. I've always got to put the little words on the side for me to refer back to before I start designing. So I just put everything off into the corner, and now I have all my notes ready, so I am prepared to begin. Let's do this.
Okay, so since, you know, we went over the background of the Hershey's logo and then I put down some of the words, if you can see right now, one of them I did put as Art Nouveau. Now, the main reason why I wanted it to kind of have an Art Nouveau feel was because, you know, Hershey's was made in the late 1800s, early 1900s, and that was when Art Nouveau was kind of starting to be in the playing field. And I wanted to have the swoosh in the stem of the H because in Art Nouveau the whiplash line was very popularized for their movement, so that was why I wanted to have the H kind of have a fancy motif around it. Now I switched to a Sharpie just because I could play around with the thickness and thinness for the strokes of the typeface. Now here I am trying to test out different types of H's, decorative H's that I could make. I also want to say, for just future reference in a few minutes, I thought that you could see the first H I drew that I was going to possibly use, and I mentioned later on, but I can see you can't see that, so I'm gonna tell you right now that it actually looks kind of more like the H on the second row, the third one, so yeah, just letting you know. I went ahead and tried messing with the R also, if I wanted to add a swoosh on there too, because if we look at the original Hershey's logo and if you read about the history of it, the past graphic designers actually did work on the R to make it not look so sans serif by adding that little swoosh or serif looking type at the leg of the R. So that's why I was messing around with that.
Okay, so I think I'm actually done doing all the sketches, which was a lot faster than I thought it was going to take. I think it's just because I've kind of decided to go ahead and maybe just get a font or typeface off of the computer and just end up editing it in Illustrator. However, I do kind of like some of the H's I actually drew out that I might actually scan and put into Illustrator. Now, yeah, I liked, where is it? I think I starred those things. I like these two H's that I did, but ultimately, I kind of like what I'm doing here. Like, I really like this H and making the rest of the word of Hershey's for their wordmark logo just smaller. Then the largest H kind of like have this almost like a drop cap in a way and have it smaller, and I feel like it kind of blends the original, or you know, the ones from the early 1900s just for their lowercase letters, because I mean, of course this is still uppercase, but it's smaller in size, so it kind of mimics the lowercase letters in a way. I don't know, it makes sense in my head. But I tried messing around with this S to match with this H, which I didn't really like how that turned out, and I don't really like either making this R loop the same way as this H. Just kind of, I don't know, it makes the rest of Hershey's right here this very bland, I think, and if it looks like I would have to do another lettering somewhere to make this little swoosh, but I don't really know where I would put that for it to look appropriate, so I'm not going to do that. I'm only going to solely play with the H. Everything else I'm just going to keep as a sans serif. Because I wanted to try the H, I mean not the H, I wanted to try the R, my bad, with the little swash, just because, you know, I mentioned earlier they do have that little bit of a swash looking thing at the bottom of the R on their modern current logo. But yeah, it just didn't work out. I think I'm just gonna stick with making the H the focal point. I don't know, maybe I can even turn this into a monogram version too, just like my last logo. But yeah, I think the contender is basically this single logo rough that I made. And then this is the main H I'm gonna do. If I have extra time or if I feel like it, I'm going to try out the other H's I've starred, which is this one, and this one, and just to see if it looks nice with this. And then I moved the since 1894. I'm just tongue-tied today. I moved it down to the bottom instead of the side just because I wanted the H to kind of have its spotlight moment, and I feel like it would end up overcrowding. So yeah, this is what I'm gonna go for. I might actually scan these H's in, we'll see, and let's just move on to the computer now.
So my scanner kind of had technical difficulties at the time, so I ended up just taking a picture and then dropping it into Adobe Illustrator. So I'm using my Wacom tablet actually to draw out the H that I ended up making on my sketchbook using the pencil tool. I actually don't use the pen tool that often, fun fact I guess. I just find it a lot more comfortable to use a Wacom tablet. I pretty much just smooth out the edges with the smooth tool. And then I'm just kind of fixing up the drawing I made. The curriculum that I had in college, it was more of like almost like learn how to use the programs on your own. It was very hands-on, and we focused more on understanding the creative process and having to come up with ideas and problem solve, things more like that, you know, presentations and public speaking. It was more of creative process than technical skills, I would say. But I did pick them up quite easily along the way. Okay, so after that H has been finished, I am now working on trying to find the right sans serif font that'll match this H that I just made. What I'm really trying to find here mainly is trying to match the thickness of the H, because obviously you don't want it to be too thin nor too heavy, because that's just gonna make the whole Hershey's logo off balanced. And then I also was trying to figure out if I wanted the kerning more spaced out or if I wanted it a lot closer to each other. I honestly had a hard time trying to figure out which one fit better. I tried a lot of different options, as you can see here. I feel like this is probably the hardest part usually when designing a logo. And we're just trying to figure out what font is perfect. I also decided not to actually find a typeface and just alter the H on it, just because the way that I wanted the H to look was very specific and I couldn't find the right font in my library and neither online that was free to use. So now I just stretched out the text which isn't actually a common thing. I just kind of felt like I could do this for this one just because of how condensed the rest of the Hershey's name looked in comparison to the H that I had, and it didn't really match the sketch that I had earlier. This is me contemplating for a while, trying to figure out exactly which one do I like. So I wasn't entirely sure still, so I ended up throwing in the since 1894 part, just to see if maybe things would change when I put those together. I was trying to decide whether I wanted the since 1894 type to be a lot thinner, just because in one of the alternate logos of Hershey's, it has a thinner stroke for that. But when I ended up putting it underneath, you know, I still obviously tried to keep that by making it smaller, but in terms of stroke weight, it kind of seemed to blend better if it was still about the same as the main word Hershey's. So now I'm just pulling the colors of the Hershey's logo and I'm trying to make room so I could end up putting the logo roughs I ended up not going with, and then moving over the logo that I actually want to stick with and work some more on. Okay, so this is the one that I ended up going with, and now I'm just pretty much prepping the black and white and colored versions for the Hershey's logo, and then I also decided to have a monogram version of it too, to just have the H on its own, just, you know, as an extra option, just have some variety. Okay, so I've disappeared here. That's because after I finished that Hershey's logo, I wasn't entirely sold on how it looked. And you know, the alternate logo has the Hershey company underneath Hershey's, so I wanted to play around with other compositions and have that alternate logo in there. So this is me just trying to test out how I could make that. So I have the Hershey's company underneath in this alternate. And then I kept playing around with it, like having the Hershey's company smaller and then placing it next to since 1894 and have that larger, since I wanted that to focus more. And then I also tried rotating it just a bit and see how that composition looked. And I also tried putting a line underneath the Hershey's logo, just trying to add some spice, you know, in there, lots of variety. And then I also tried putting since 1894 underneath, the first alternate logo design that I tried, instead of having it next to the stem of the H, because that really did not look good. And I decided to go with that one. So here are the final logo reveals.
And that is a wrap on episode 2 of my redesign series. If you like this video, make sure to let me know by giving this video a thumbs up, and just comment down below if there's any other brand you'd like me to redesign. Also, if you're interested, please support me on Ko-Fi by buying me a coffee. It's a one-time payment and helps me out with this channel as well as my other platforms so I can keep improving and consistently create creative content for all of you. The link will be in the description below. So thanks for watching everyone, and don't forget to subscribe so we can keep hanging out, and I shall see you in the next video. Bye!